the therapeutic relationship is, pretty unique. And yeah, there might be a feeling that you wouldn't want to risk this person who you've poured your heart out to, rejecting you or something. So you start to avoid a certain topic, or you don't say something that's bothering you. But yeah, again, if you can bring those things in, then just, it increases the sense of trust and safety because nothing's off the table if something goes wrong. And as you said before, a lot of people who come to therapy, particularly, working with attachment with the clients, there's a lot of people who have a history of parents or maybe partners and so on who, after there's been a fight, they'll pretend like nothing happened. There's not that repair. It's just kind of like, no, we're going to go back to normal. And that's often, really invalidating. It really undermines trust and, makes the person feel like, well, I can't expect people to own their emotions. I can't expect people to apologize. And so I'm just going to have to, avoid or put up with this into the future.
Yeah, and if I want to keep the relationship, I better let it go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I see that a lot in clients with more of the avoidant, dismissing style. And, they kind of think, I don't need to talk about those things. It's fine to just have a fight with your partner and then never, talk about it the next day. You just move on. Yeah, but that's probably because that's what they learned when they were younger, that the person who's hurt me is not going to come back and try and say something. So, again, it's really important being the therapist to try and make space for that. And you're not going to, you're going to try and catch these things when they happen with a client, but we're going to miss stuff. Not every little kind of misattunement is going to be obvious. So I think it's about, again, the wider container of therapy. And that's why I say so early on, I welcome feedback, because it might take someone 2 or 3 months to say, actually, here's this thing that's been happening the whole time that I want to talk about now. Or, I'll come back to it as well. We might be we're coming up to Christmas, and this is the time of year to sort of take stock of what's happened. So some of my clients I'm having conversations with at the moment about, it's been 6 months or it's been a year or whatever we've been working together. I'd like to check in about, how has this been? How has this time been working together? Do you feel like we've been working on the things that matter to you? Is there anything we haven't talked about, anything we haven't addressed that might make things better next year when we continue? And that opens up that opportunity for a person to say, yeah, actually, you know what? I didn't want to talk about it, or I didn't want to say anything, but since you're asking, yeah, I guess I hoped we were going to, do more somatic work. I thought we were going to do more of that. Or you've actually been, you've been getting my partner's name wrong the whole last 6 months. That one's never happened to me, thankfully. I'm very diligent with names. But, something like that, you just the kind of thing you go along with for a while because you don't want to.
And then you feel like it's too late to say something. And I think it's a huge thing to kind of watch that, can I be myself with this therapist? And, in an initial session, it's an initial meeting with a person. So, yes, you might not feel like you can be 100% letting your guard down, nor should you. But can you be enough of yourself with this therapist on your first meeting that it feels authentic, that it feels real enough? And, are there any jarring moments? Are there any places that you didn't feel met or held, or that they were curious about the stuff that mattered to you? And then, obviously ongoingly, am I really showing up with the stuff that I know I should be talking about? Because we can sometimes be going to therapy and knowing that there's something sitting over here, but we're not saying it. Being able to name to the therapist that, I think with the example you just gave of checking in, are we talking about the things that are important to you? Being able to name that, actually there is something that I feel like I should be talking about, but I'm not quite ready yet. But even just naming to the therapist that it's there and putting it on their radar rather than you both moving away from it all the time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, this goes back to what you said before about you don't let everything out in the first session, and it might take a few sessions before you can really trust that, the thing you really most want to talk about is going to be okay to talk. So it's not about showing up to your first session and making sure you get every kind of last trauma out of the closet. And I would actually really discourage clients against doing that because, as I so often tell my clients, it's often not so much the contents of the story they tell, but how they tell them. And again, the relationship that we're in can hold that story in a very different way once we've known each other for a few months and we've done like the attachment work. I mean, this is, again, working with clients with trauma, often complex trauma. There's a lot of therapists, or it seems to be, till this point in time, and maybe this is changing a bit now, but such a focus on processing of we've got to work the trauma through the body. But I think, where I work on attachment first, because if you build that as a secure foundation, that changes the relationship with the therapist. And then when you're doing that processing work later on, there's, more of those secure behaviors. I do a lot of stuff around collaborative communication, both verbal and non-verbal behaviors. Might be working on eye contact and understanding what it's like to be seen by another person. Like, what is it like to be here in this room with me? I notice you look out the window a lot. That's okay. You don't need to stop doing that. I just want to bring your awareness to that. I've had clients who over the course of months have looked out the window, but eventually they got to the point where they could feel comfortable talking to me. And, we'll work on that to the point where it's just not even something they think about. When we then go and look at processing trauma, that's a very different experience. I'm now a safe anchor for them to look at. They don't have to look out the window to regulate themselves. So, I think that allowing the relationship to develop over time and, you're going to set a course at the start of therapy perhaps. It might take a few sessions, but there's going to be like an emerging sort of idea of what the client wants to achieve, how you're going to help them get there, how you're going to work together. But then, 6 months in, whatever, depends what kind of issues you're working with. But say, some of the clients I'm working with, it's quite long-term stuff. There's going to need to be a check-in every once in a while about where are we at with our plan? Do we need to reform it? And I have those conversations quite a lot with certain clients. I just feel it, and it keeps things so you feel like every session is full of juice, like it's really doing something when you're on track. And I think if people have ever had that experience of not being sure of, is this really working and we're in the right path, having a conversation with a therapist about it is essential. Otherwise, you might just keep kind of drifting.
So even saying to their therapist, I feel a little bit unsure about where this is going or whether this is working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just opening that conversation. Therapy can drift sometimes and not be focusing on the things that we really want to focus on, And that can be sometimes the avoidance of what we really should be talking about. And the therapist might unknowingly collude with that a little bit and talk about other stuff, easier stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I guess this is where both parties have a bit of a responsibility. Like the therapist needs to be kind of aware if they're colluding, as you said, if maybe they start to notice client's defense is to intellectualize over and over again. And they're really just not talking about their emotions very much in therapy. At some stage, you've really got to say something about that to the client while also considering why that might be. What's going on? Like, is it something to do with you and, the way that you practice? Maybe you don't have the training they need, or maybe, you've just grown comfortable. But then also the client, you kind of need to be willing to take that risk to, maybe it's not even to move towards talking about your emotions so much. Maybe it's talking about the relationship first. You know what? I do intellectualize a lot in session, and I just don't feel like safe to go towards my emotions right now. And having a therapist who responds to that, okay, well, I wonder how we can work together to find a tolerable level of, talking about those emotions so that we can not just stay in the head kind of forever.
So when we're choosing a therapist or having an initial session, what are green flags we should look for?
They give you a chance to talk about yourself.
Yep. You feel safe or safe enough and at ease.
You get a sense of hope.
They explain how they work so you feel clear about what's going to happen.
They say or they indicate that they're open to feedback.
Yeah, like they welcome your questions. They don't make big promises about what they're going to deliver. You feel like they're curious about you.
Yeah, they don't try to fit you to a model, but they try to make a model fit for you.
And they invite you to notice what it feels like to be with them, invite you to notice what the fit feels like. They have a theory about rupture and repair in therapy.
Yeah, they welcome questions.
They can explain how change happens.
They take time to make sure your schedule fits with theirs.
Even when you look at their profile or photo or read their bio, you feel drawn to them and at ease with them.
They seem comfortable owning their mistakes.